Right. And let me let everybody in. Okay, I don't know what this thing is doing. It's doing weird things. Okay, so everybody should be in just a second. And
hey, everybody.
Yeah, all right, now everyone's out of the waiting room and into this room. Excuse me. Welcome, everybody. I am Teri Sears, and welcome to the writers panel. And just to let you know, I've got I put everybody on that's not part of the panel on mute so that there's no distractions from the noise. I wanted to welcome everybody. I figured that I would start off by having everybody take a couple minutes to introduce themselves in case people do not know who you are. So who wants to go first? Any volunteers? Otherwise, I'll just pick Vera because she's next on my screen. So
Everyone, I'm Vera Nazarian, the author of several fantasy and science fiction works, and right now we are here because of the Atlantis Grail series. So that's the one that's my primary work, as shall we say, and it's YA science fiction, basically mixing near future with ancient history, ancient Egypt, ancient Atlantis, and you've probably read some of these books. So here we go. And my colleagues are, my lovely, wonderful colleagues, here they are.
who wants to go next?
We're just doing sound off.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I'm Jacqueline Carey, a fantasy author, best known for Kushiel's Legacy, which is an alternate historical series set in there we go. That's the first volume. Roughly medieval Provence, with a wildly subversive theological background.
He's just amazing. I'm a huge fan, by the way.
Actually, so is my wife, actually. Is a huge fan of this.
There we go.
Well, you should get her to sit in on the panel, you know.
There you go.
Yeah.
She's in her ladybug overall jammies right now. So
Oh, okay.
well, since I spoke up, I am Stephen L. Sears. I am a writer, television producer, screenwriter, author, sometimes actor, meaning basically I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So far, so good. Most of my work has been in television. I go back to the days of the 80s, Riptide, A-Team, Hardcastle, McCormick, Stingray, a lot of different shows in the last 4 decades. I was a co-exec producer and one of the head writers for Xena Warrior Princess. I co-created the last version of Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, who's over my shoulder there, exec producer of that, and still held deals with the studio, still in development, and starting to write short stories and anthologies over there, which I stacked up there because my author wife said, always stack up your stuff where they can see them. There you go, that's me.
Good point.
So I guess I'm the last one left. I'm Mike Allen, and I am a writer and editor and publisher. I have a little press called Mythic Delirium Books, and that last year celebrated its 25th anniversary.
Wow.
and so yesterday, actually 2 days ago now, can't count yet, 2 days ago was my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I've reached the Sammy Hagar speed limit. Yes. And I had the hilarious humbling experience of yesterday in my physical therapy session, cracking that joke, and all of the physical therapists who are in their 20s and early 30s had no idea what I was talking about. That was that was great. But so I mentioned my birthday because on my birthday I got an extra additional present, which is that 2 of the titles that my wife Anita and I published during our anniversary Mythic Delirium year were included on the latest Locus recommended reading list, which is which is always fun when that happens. And this is where I start doing the little cover hold up. One of those was the latest book from Theodora Goss, The Collected Enchantments, which is a kind of career overview of just about all of the short fiction and poetry that she has written that has folklore and fairy tale connections. And our other entry, they're unfortunately competing in the same category, best collection, is Like Smoke, Like Light, which is the debut collection of short fiction from Japanese author Yukimi Ogawa. So glad to see that kind of recognition happening. And we put out a third book last year, our anniversary year, which was the novel The Twice Drowned Saint by C.S.E. Cooney, whose most recent novel prior to this, Saint Death's Daughter, just won the World Fantasy Award. So we're crossing fingers that fortune will strike again, but you never know. But the reason why this book was not, I'm gonna be bold and state this, the reason why this book was not on this year's Locus recommended reading list is because it was already on that list when it appeared in our most recent anthology, A Sinister Quartet, which this is meant to be sort of a different seasons, if you're familiar with that Stephen King book, a sort of different seasons type work of novellas of dark fantasy and horror that came out in 2020, and The Twice Drowned Saint first appeared there. And as I mentioned, I'm also an author.
That's right.
yeah. This year, 2024, yes, I had to count in my head, is going to be the 10th anniversary of my horror collection Unseeming, which was Shirley Jackson Award finalist when it came out. And it actually remains my best-selling book. Not a bestseller, but my best-selling book. There is a difference. And so the tie-in to that for this year is I have a new collection of horror coming out called Slow Burn. This is an ARC. Whoever is watching this, you are the first people to see this cover. And this is scheduled to be out in July. Contains a number of stories that tie into that earlier book that I showed. So a lot of things going on. And that's probably enough for me for the moment.
Awesome. Thanks for all the introductions, everybody. So I was wondering if anybody had anything in particular that they would like to start off the conversation with. I know sometimes people have ideas that they wanted to speak about. Anybody have an idea off the top of their heads? Nope.
Is there any particular, I didn't get a brief on, is there a theme, a motif, or are we just talking writing?
Yeah, perhaps restate what
we
the
do
for
have a list
everybody.
of questions somewhere, so I'm trying to think if
Or restate the overall topic of this meeting, just for everybody out there.
Oh,
Most
yeah.
people
Well, this
obviously
is
don't.
like a writer's roundtable. So usually we
Right.
wind up talking about lots of things. So one of my favorite questions to ask people is, how did you get into writing fiction? Like, was that a lifelong desire that you had? Did you stumble into it? Did it, how did that happen for you? Does anybody?
I'm a liar. It's easy. Mine was a different route because I came in through television, and originally I was an actor. But one of the things that I realized much later in my life, when I tried to define what I was, I realized that overall everything that I mentioned as far as credits are concerned comes down to one thing: I'm a storyteller, and that encompasses all these particular areas: writing novels, writing screenplays, acting, directing, editing, all of those things in production. those are all storytellers, and it was something I was good at when I was really young. But when I moved out to Los Angeles, it was primarily to be an actor. What I ended up doing was I started writing audition scenes for myself to be shown in front of casting directors. And I will not give you the incredibly long story of this, but by doing that, I found a love for actually becoming all the characters in my stories and being able to chart out the plots. And so step by step, I started getting screenplays in my particular case and breaking them down to find out why they worked. I wanted to understand what the process was. And in that process, my best friend and I, a guy named Bert Pearl, he and I started writing scripts for the fun of it. We sent a couple of those scripts, or had them sent over to a production office that was doing a TV show. And we ended up with the first professional meeting we'd ever had as writers. And off of that, we got an assignment. And off of that, we were put on staff for the show. And off of that, I've had a 40-year career just based on that.
Wow.
I started
awesome.
branching out into prose and authored, actually working on prose later on in my life. So, but that was my entry into it. I never intended to be a writer. It was a completely, fortuitous accident. And I've been incredibly blessed by the fact that that happened. But that was my entry.
Cool. Jacqueline, how about you?
I kind of came in through the back door in a very different way. I was terribly bored in high school, and I started keeping a novel in the back of my notebook. And it looked like I was a really diligent student taking copious notes. I was actually writing this ungodly long, generations long, part soap opera, part fantasy that
Same here.
okay.
Yeah.
And I kept that up all the way through high school, through college, not majoring in writing, not studying writing. And then I graduated with 2 degrees, not in writing, and no idea what I wanted to do. And I took sort of a sabbatical and got a work permit to work in the UK for a year. And I was working in a bookstore in London and thought, hey, this writing thing, people, this is how naive I was. I'm like, people make a living doing it. But it was then that I really started trying to turn my passion into a profession. 10 years later, I succeeded.
Sounds amazingly like some of the things I did in my school days.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I had a question for you. How did you decide to do the? Because I know we have Kushiel's. I think it's is it Cassiel's Servant is the title, right? That's coming up. This is the point of view of one of the wonderful the hero in the first series, right? He's sort of like the hero to the heroine.
Yeah, or
he's not the main, right?
As somebody blurted out at a panel I was on recently, hot priest. He's the hot priest.
So this is just, you decided to do this, right? Just like retell the first, because it's the first book, but from his point of view. So that's going to be, a lot of people will be getting very excited. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was never planning to write from Jocelyn, my hot celibate board priest's point of view. I was challenged to do a sonnet for a charity, and I polled my fans. I'm like, who would you like a sonnet from and to? And that most popular answer was from Jocelyn to Phaedra.
Oh,
like, okay, I'm gonna do that. I'll just bang out an Elizabethan sonnet the way you do. And it was the first time I'd really put myself in his head, looking through his eyes. And 20 years after the fact, I'm like,
yeah.
I want to give voice to him. And I did.
Was it a little bit strange because to do the same things but like from his
it was
not Phaedra but him?
Yeah, it had been a long enough time that it wasn't as much of a point of view whiplash as actually the first time I switched points of view in this milieu. But it did certainly carry its own interesting challenges.
That's wonderful. I'm gonna be getting that one. We know where I'm getting that book.
Awesome.
Cool. Mike, how did you get into writing? Obviously, you've been doing it for a while.
For a bit, probably, as as long as most everybody here, but so when I was a teen, it really wasn't that clear to me that writing was the thing I wanted to do. Pretty much any kind of art that I found inspirational, that was what I wanted to do at that given moment. When I enrolled in the undergraduate programs at Virginia Tech, which is where I work now, I was an art major. So that's how I started out. And during those 4 years, I probably put way more effort into a Dungeons and Dragons campaign that I wrote, to serve as game master for, than I did any of my schoolwork. And that maybe was giving a hint to me of what I was really, really passionate about, but it didn't gel until my senior year of college, when having dabbled in writing, but not having, I wasn't an English major, or anything like that, but I managed to sell a short story to a small press outlet, and I took that as a hint that, oh, maybe this is going to be the career path for me. And I chuckled hearing what Jacqueline said about naivety in assumptions, because I didn't really make any money writing fiction, even though I started pursuing it much harder until like over a decade later.
Money and authors, it's just.
Yeah. But I kept it up, and I kept it up, and backed into becoming an editor as well during the process. That was definitely something that I had never set out to do, but the two became kind of inexorably intertwined ever since, and sort of resulted in the weird hybrid creature that I am now.
Well, I want to mention something that Mike and I worked together on the anthology series Clockwork Phoenix.
Right.
Which at that point I was publishing the series, and then Mike took over later. But this was back like in like a decade ago or something. So we had Clockwork Phoenix 1, 2, 3, and what is it? And then
we did the first 3 volumes.
The first 3, and then you went on to do
that was like 08 to that was like 2008 to 2010.
Yeah, and that was a great anthology. We had all these award nominated and win,
right.
Yeah. So what was the last one? I think they won the Nebula, or was it a?
Oh well, so
something really, really, good stuff.
That went through Clockwork Phoenix 5, which came out. That came out in, I think, 2016, and it was a World Fantasy Award finalist. That was the big sort of finish line fun for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That was just fun. So we, I don't know if you have. I can't find mine. I have, the stack of them, but I can't seem to find.
I have multiple. I have multiple copies, but I'm not. Let's see.
No problem.
Well, I do have the most recent one that was
There we
the
go.
Fantasy Award finalist. This is Clockwork Phoenix 5.
Right.
With this very sort of colorful and hallucinogenic paper cut artwork by artist Paula Arwen Owen. All of these, I don't know how well you can see these in the Zoom. These figures are paper cutouts.
Wow.
So,
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, she does amazing work.
So that was fun. That was great.
Yeah. And so that first volume in that series, Clockwork Phoenix, and just whoever's I guess listening at home, a quick search of those two terms, these books are all still available, on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, etc. You'll see the certainly the very first book, and this is true of the other books in the series too, but almost especially the very first book is kind of this all-star lineup of authors who some of them were kind of well known then, but now they're extraordinarily well known.
Yes.
So that book is still earning royalties for all. I mean, they all are, but that one especially, earning royalties for all involved, which is a fun thing, to be able to say, over a decade later.
I find it interesting that in everybody's response, there was some mention about what we thought the money was going to be or what it wasn't.
Right.
And even in
money, right?
even in my realm, when Bert and I walked out of that production office and we'd been told we had an assignment, as I said, we had no intentions of being writers. And Bert turned to me and he said, "Are we being paid for this?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I guess they pay writers. I don't know." And he said, "How much?" And I said, day rate for an actor, which I was an actor at the time, was about $250 a day. And so I said, "Oh, I hope it's like $500 because we have to split it." Well, a script back then for a 1-hour show was $15,000.
Wow.
Yeah, but getting them often enough was the problem. Fortunately, we ended up on staff. But I don't know if anybody wants to elaborate on this, but what I find with a lot of new authors, especially in the prose world, is they have, in general, not everybody, two expectations. One is that they're still going to be a starving artist for a long time, which is probably the smart way of thinking of it. And the second one is that they're going to write that one big bestseller right out of the blue. They're going to become a J.K. Rowling's type of billionaire and have several movie deals. It's like one or the other. So I'm kind of interested in what other people's idea about that or advice that you'd give out to the writers.
Well, I was going to say Jacqueline has the bestseller. I mean, she had, wasn't that like the first book you had? The Kushiel books, was it the first one you started with?
It was, but
Yeah.
I learned, I was traveling this summer on a book tour to promote Castiel's Servant, and
Right.
they had me positioned as the OG of romantasy, which is the hot new hybrid genre.
No. You know what? You are way better than that. I'm sorry. Romantasy, I would.
Well, I appreciate it, but you
real
see what the
fantasy.
marketing is.
I know. I just.
What I was seeing a lot of pressure from authors who had a lot of success early, late 20s, mid 20s even, who are now at 32 going, "Oh my God, my fans are outgrowing me."
But no, I was gonna say you're real. The thing about romantasy is that it's like the shallow. Take romance and you stick it on the facade of fantasy with the world building that's so flimsy that it's just like falls away like a house of cards. Is nothing there behind. It's just an excuse for like sexy times, basically. But you have the real deal. You have rich, multi-layered, true historical, beautiful fantasy with a real, there's of course the love story and the characters and all the relationships, but that there's just such a almost like a demotion to call you romantasy, and I'm sorry that they're doing that to you because you're way better than that. So. But yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, one thing I did want to ask, I think it's on our, do we have a list of our questions? Is what's happening right now in the industry for everybody? Like, what is shocks and surprises and weird things are happening in this year's? Like, what do you think is so weird about the industry right now? Because it's changing like crazy. Anybody have any, notions about that? How is it dealing? How are you feeling in the industry? How are you floating and managing things? Because there are things happening out there.
Well, I'm on the outside with this a little bit. This is in the area that you guys have all accomplished in. That's a new area that I'm moving into, and
right.
So I'm intrigued by all of this. For someone such as myself coming into it, I can certainly say I notice a lot of opportunity with your own publishing platforms. A lot of authors are not just remaining as authors, they're becoming editors and publishers and kind of establishing themselves as an overall brand, which I think is very exciting. But I do have friends who have been authors for a long time and have spoken somewhat longingly for the old days when the big house publishers would give them the big upfront advances and help them market and establish themselves. As I can tell, and once again, everybody correct me on this, that era seems to be a past residual. It seems to be going away. You still have it, but I think more people are branching out on their own and establishing themselves as their own individual brand. That's my observation.
Yeah, it seems like one of the things that's happening recently is not only just the self-publishing, taking over a lot of the space, but people really selling direct. I mean, authors are setting up stores on their websites. It's even beyond self-publishing. It's not just selling through Amazon and Barnes and Noble online. No, this is authors are printing their own books and selling physical copies from stores and, just telling everybody off, like telling all the vendors and everything, who cares? So this has been just something that started, I think it's this last year, 2023 is when selling direct just kind of took over. And I'm like, what's happening here? Because,
Is anybody else on Book Talk?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, because that has currently blown up the industry in a big way. I think that it's probably already peaked in terms of influence, but a lot of peer-to-peer marketing is happening there, and a lot of direct sales too.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, talking about Book Talk is you have the craze for physical books, because for a while their ebooks were like taking over, but now all these beautiful hardcover, books that have I don't even know how to describe, like, let's say this is your book. Well, you would have the sprayed edges going on, which is like this beautiful artistic, either gilded or like designs on them.
A lot of special editions.
Yeah, all these gorgeous editions. So it's like I think that's we can blame it on Book Talk because it wasn't such a big deal. I mean, it was there, but it wasn't such a strong, almost like a fad right now. Everybody wants these.
Yeah. I think it's a conjunction of the social media platform, and then you've got the artisanal quality and the yearning for something precious.
Right.
All just kind of perfect storming for that right now. I see genre-wise, I feel like horror's gonna be making an increasing comeback and probably making some inroads into other genres.
Yeah, like the whole thing with the dark romance and the dark fantasy kind of smooshing together. And it's really horror. I mean, because it is kind of so dark and trigger warnings.
A lot of agents and publishers right now are looking for either horror titles or what I heard one publisher referred to as horror adjacent. Something that perhaps is not something that perhaps doesn't have all the gory trappings, but still has that, kind of suspenseful, ghost story, supernatural feel.
That include horrible writing, because I'm in.
Well, that is, that is constant. That's never going away. So regarding Book Talk, I am not on Book Talk. Maybe I should be, but
you need to get on there.
Well, so I'm reminded of a meme that I have seen circulating among my writer friends on the interwebs, and it's just like it's done like a dialogue from a chat or something like that, and the script goes something like editor, so there's editor, so your career, your success depends on one thing and one thing only, and the writer says, yes, tell me what it is, I'll do it. And the editor says, your ability to create a 10-second comedy video. and it ends with the writer saying, "What?"
I've seen that. I have seen that. That is just sad. It's true. It's like, no, it's not your talent. It's not your ability to create stylistic, beautiful prose. No, it's your ability to do TikToks.
I'm aware of the book talk phenomenon, but I'm not myself a participant at this point, for better or for worse. I can tell you that from my perspective, as kind of an indie publisher and sort of a hybrid writer, the the pandemic, COVID-19, like upended everything from my perspective about back in 2020, and I feel kind of learning the new rules. Timetables changed for when books need to go into production and when the when the PR cycles need to start, and things like that. And I know I know a number of authors who had books come out in 2020, kind of regarded as almost sort of a lost era. It's like, my book came out in 2020 and nobody noticed because
This monster
nobody was
mind.
paying attention. Yeah,
Oh,
and
1,000-page law. It came out in 20.
right.
Yeah, but that came out the very beginning of
At the
2020.
beginning, yes, I left out because what were you guys doing in 2020? I was actually writing on this book. This book has made me see this. I'm originally like I consider myself a hybrid, some traditionally published, a lot of it self-published now, because I'm just, going straight there. But right now, I'm a full-time self-published writer. I mean, that's, it's not something that many people can say. I'm fortunate. I've lucked out. But that book I just showed you, that fat 32-page book, it's the last book of the series, The Atlantis. And I was living off of that all of 2020 as I was trying to do things. And I had some medical, like I had dealing with upcoming surgeries and things. And thank God for this book, because it earned me over 40,000 in the first month of release. It was like the #1 bestseller on Apple and some other things. But this is self-publishing. That's like the Wild West right now. You never know. Like right now, I'm at the going down because I need a new book release. But in that point, I made money off that one book for 1 year, and you never know what's the next one. It could be just not, it's like whoop. I really do think it's the great wild unknown that's happening out there right now. And between this and I've had some audiobook traditional, because it's like this book is the paper editions and the ebooks are self-published through me, and then I sold the audio rights to like traditional publishers. So between then and this, it's a hybrid world out there. You can't just rely on one thing. You just kind of have to mix it up and just you can live like that. That's what my thing is. Like the way publishing is going right now, you have to combine forces with your traditional side, your self side, your subsidiary rights, all these things that get movie deals, because this has been optioned for film now. I want to know when we're getting Kushiel's series film. Like when is there any news on that? Jacqueline, tell us.
Do you know, there is a new creative team that has a shopping agreement
Good.
for the series, and they're working on a pitch. When Cassiel's Servant came out, they said, we actually have a whole new idea of how to approach this material.
Right.
I myself have always been of I'm not holding my breath, and I'm still not, but the ball is still in play.
Oh my goodness. I hope they do something, because that would be a spectacular, whether it's a series or whatever it is. I want to see it, because that should be beautiful. I mean, that should be.
It's scary because it's also something that could be handled badly so very, very easily in so very, very many different ways. And so if it happens, I just hope it would
Well,
truly respect the
you're-
integrity of the work, but
You're
Yeah,
kind of entering my
yeah.
realm at that point because I've dealt with this, and I also have
Right.
rights to several authors' books, and trying to honor the author and the author's intent, and then going through the machine of Hollywood is extremely difficult. Anybody out there who is thinking about that with their books, obviously you should get the best representation you could, the best advice. Keep in mind, the entertainment industry is a completely different animal where it comes to legal rights. And as all of you know, copyright and copyright assignment is incredibly complicated. And keep this one thing in mind: studios do not spend millions of dollars on attorneys to be fair.
Yeah, that is true.
Yep.
I
One
I
thing I
see
do
some
want to
questions
mention,
popping up in the chat.
Yeah.
I just wanted to call attention to that.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. I was about to do the same thing, but
Yeah,
go
go
for it.
Oh, well, so there was one a little bit back. Are most of the panel indie authors, traditional authors, or both? I know I would call myself a blend, but mostly indie. Vera, it sounds
hybrid. I mean, that's
yeah.
traditional.
yeah, traditional, exactly.
Definitely. And
I have no idea.
And you're like screenwriting plus you're like
Hollywood.
Yeah, Hollywood. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's more
a
like
different
the
tradition.
question about how do your books get published? Are they done by a traditional book publisher, or are they self-published? That was
Yeah.
the
And for me, I'm the stuff that I'm doing. I'm working on some novels, and aside from the anthologies that I've done, which were established, Alien versus Predator was certainly established. Most of my stuff I'm looking at, and I have the luxury of looking at, as doing direct publishing by myself or self-publishing. I've got a compendium of short stories that I'm going to be putting out in the next year, plus another book series I'm writing with my wife. And we are just looking at, I hate to say it this way, but we're looking at, let's play around, let's have fun and just see what comes back.
Yeah, that's a good plan. So there was another audience question, which was, do you as writers ever have time to read things written by other people? And if so, do you stick to the genre you write in, or do you read other things? So
I'll just
Vera's
say
saying what she does.
I read these people. I love these people. I've been we invited them because I love these people. I'm a huge fan. So I love fantasy, science fiction, of course I adore romantic elements. I wouldn't say I'm a romantasy reader because again, I'm just so annoyed with that term. I'm sorry for literally it's just like a chalk on the blackboard, because that's, to me, it's just like, it just screams like not as good quality, even by its very, anyway, don't want to go there. No offense to anyone who likes romantasy or writes it or reads it or whatever. It's just like, to me, I would prefer just to call it romantic fantasy, romance. So I read everything. I love a lot of type of, genres. And what do you guys think?
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I had more time to read for pleasure, but I think you have to stay sharp and good and fresh and engaged in your craft. I do a lot of research reading as well. Nonfiction, like there's a book, An Immense World by Ed Yong that came out in the past year or so that's all about perception and how different species have a completely different world that they inhabit, essentially. And
See, that's interesting to me,
yeah,
because I'm the same thing. I read a lot of nonfiction because I can easily pick it up and put it down, but I am an information sponge. I just love it. And what's the name of that book again? Because literally when you
An Immense World. An Immense World.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing
really
I would grab.
tremendous.
And trying to get time to read other people's work is difficult. As soon as we sign off of this, before I'm going to do another panel with you later on, I have to actually read a screenplay for pre-production notes. And it's like, I've got 3 other books that are stacked up here. And I agreed to provide a blurb for somebody's book jacket. And another, very popular friend of mine, I asked him, I said, wow, how do you do these blurbs? And a long time ago, and he said, well, he says, you know the author well enough and you read enough to be able to tell what the story is, and then you can give a blurb. I've got to read the whole thing, because if it's a good author, I read the first chapter and I go, I'll just read 2 more pages of the next chapter. And you know what happens.
Yeah, and 3 hours later, yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Try to get all the time to do that. But
Yeah.
if you're good, I want to stay with you.
My answer to that question is maybe more of a cautionary tale. I think compared to my fellow panelists here, I'm probably closer to the average profile of a working writer, which is that I have a day job that is not the writing of fiction. And for 25 years seems to come up a lot in my life right now. I was a newspaper reporter. And toward the end of that stage of my career, as the staff was thinned by layoffs and folks making the leap to other professions, and I had to sort of take on more and more, because more people weren't hired, new beats were added to my beat. And then, continuing sort of my own publishing and writing work, on creative writing and publishing work. On top of that, I reached a point where pretty much the only reading outside of what I did for my day job was what I needed to do. Basically, I was either reading the work by the author I was going to publish, or, revising something of my own, and not taking in anything else from outside. Now that doesn't mean I wasn't reading. My final year with the newspaper, I became the editorial page editor. And so that involved a lot of reading, because in order to write opinions about things, I needed to have some idea what I was going to be opining on. But it was basically impossible to do any pleasure reading at all. And that was one of the factors that made me finally decide, okay, I've stayed on this sinking ship too long. I need to go somewhere where there's going to be a better work-life balance, which I now have. In my
what are you doing with Virginia Tech? What is your
my title is media relations officer. Essentially, I've switched sides. I am now a person who contacts journalists and says, we have this computer engineer who's doing this fascinating research related to virtual reality and AI, and this is timely with this topic that we believe that you're about to write about. So why don't you consider interviewing this person? So that's what my day job is now. And there's a lot of fun elements to that. I managed to create a media pitch that tied into the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, when that was the front runner for the Oscars. I went to my team and said, hey, do we have a physicist who can talk about, what physicists actually think the multiverse would be like? And we did. And we did, and I managed to get that particular scientist interviewed on the BBC. So that was a lot of fun. So that's what I do for my day job. And I now have time to read for pleasure to some degree. And I will confess, like, I think what everybody, you should read like the widest variety possible. But because when left to my own devices as a writer, I tend to write horror. That has been my first choice to read now that I have time to do so. And I've caught up with works of Shirley Jackson, reread some Peter Straub, explored the writing of some of the newer authors who are generating publicity and having hits, and more than a few of them are folks who, you know, I worked with in their earlier days, published in Clockwork Phoenix or in my magazine Mythic Delirium when I was doing that. So it's been fun to see what they're doing now.
Now, somebody brought up AI, and that just, you know, clicked with me. What are your feelings on AI and writing right now? Because that's something that's infringing on our world. All of a sudden, in every sense, AI is everywhere.
Sure, no writer here has an opinion on AI.
Yes.
So this is I'll throw in this. This is probably going to be a little depressing to hear. Like I'm absolutely, you know, I think all of the you know, science fiction and fantasy markets that are making stands against and creating policies against publishing work that makes use of AI. I'm in favor of that 100%. But the thing that you know, and I know, you know, the recent strikes in the movie and television industry, you know, negotiating how AI is going to be handled has been a big part of that. But, you know, something that, you know, we writers are often just sort of, you know, we're in our little caves, you know, trying to do our thing, and, you know, we all go, oh, AI, ew. But something that people need to be aware of is that that these you know, these large language model programs, that's what AI, as we talk about it now, refers to. They're being incorporated into literally everything.
Yeah.
Like, as you know, your word processor program has it now, your all of your graphic design programs have them now. So it's you know, we're probably going to have to we're probably going to have to come to different terms with this, you know, at some point in the future, because this type of technology is going to become as ubiquitous as, say, you know, smartphones.
I think,
You know,
So we're
I'm gonna
definitely not
offer
at the end of this. Yes.
I'm going to offer up a contrarian point of view to something I've seen a lot of authors saying, which is that AI can never do what a fiction author can do. I have read some fiction that I would not be one bit surprised to learn was AI generated. I think really good fiction, no, that's not something, like, I don't feel threatened as an author, but I do think there's a lot of formulaic stuff out there that is already, in essence, being scraped the way AI scrapes images and text by other fiction writers.
Were you guys a victim of the Chat GPT scrape thing? That two of my books were. I looked them up on there was the Atlantic database, the Atlantic Monthly, whatever.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah,
And they like 130 something. And I was lucky. Oh no, two of my books got scraped. So I'm like, somewhere out there, Chat GPT has learned because of my stuff, and that makes me kind of really pissed off.
I have in my realm, when this first started, one of the things I said is I can't wait until the first big blockbuster movie written completely by AI comes out, because I'm going to write the sequel and they can't do a damn thing about it, because they're struggling with the copyright issues.
Exactly.
But here's a larger thing. AI is here. We know it. It's not going to go away. It's the candy we all want. That's how we are seduced into technologies. It's the candy we want. Now, here is my commentary on it. As writers, as authors, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that, for example, when you write a book or screenplay or whatever, that they connect with your characters. That's only half true. They're actually connecting with you. They're connecting with the author. Because when you write a character in pain, you feel that pain when you write it. When you write a character with joy, you write that joy, you write that passion. You couldn't have translated that to your characters if you didn't feel it. Now, eventually, AI is going to be very good at mimicking this, extremely good at mimicking all of that. But here's the problem. In 4 generations, we're going to be training our children that mimicry is human passion. And that's something we have to be aware of.
Wow, that is terrifying. That's actually pretty depressing to me. Wow.
That's a really valid point, though.
But yeah, it is. Yeah, that's why it's terrifying,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's getting better and better. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the clock and it says we have 8 minutes in the panel left. So I wanted to spend the last few minutes asking everybody if you had any last comments you wanted to make about writing in general, or how you think the future of writing is going to go, which you kind of touched on already.
Yeah.
Or,
I will say
or you know,
personally, since I'm moving into that area, I'm finding it extremely exciting. I used to be called in my screenplays, I overwrote and then I'd have to edit back, which was my style. Now on the page, I'm finding a lot of freedom that I can explore so many things. And as you know, it's frustrating because in a screenplay, I added in this character just to service the scene. In a novel, I added in this character and, oh, that character is interesting. I'm going to go follow that character and go off in another chapter and start a new thread. So on a personal level, I just want to say I'm actually in awe of what all of you have accomplished. And I'm kind of moving into that realm now. So just as an overall statement.
We're kind of in on what you're doing too. So
Right now, I'm just listening to you while rotating slowly in my chair.
you're not alone on the rotating in the chair and listening, of course. Jacqueline, any last words of wisdom for the panel?
No. Come back to me. I'm searching for some wisdom.
Well, I was gonna say we have why don't we say what stuff is coming out? Because you have Cassiel's Servant coming out. What do you have, Mike? What's the
you know, the one that people can actually go out and find right now would be the new collection, Slow Burn, which, as you might guess, is kind of an ironic title. And I do have a novel that has I'm under contract with Broken Eye Books, which is a publisher of dark fantasy and horror based on the West Coast. The novel's called Trail of Shadows, but that is not yet available pre-order. So, you know, if you remember that, if you were here on this panel and remember that name when it actually becomes available, you know, I'm impressed. More power to you. I don't know, to the degree I could offer any words of wisdom, you know, related to writing, you know, I guess it would be, you know, if it's something you feel compelled to do, by all means do it, you know, by all means do it, but, you know, try not to get discouraged. The publishing world is a pretty harsh environment, whether you're going traditional or indie or both. It's very difficult and challenging. But, you know, if you don't write, then if you don't write, then you don't get the cool things either. So be sure, you know, be sure when you start something to finish it and polish it and get it out there. This isn't original to me, but this is the thing I preach as like what to do to keep your writing going if you're in you know, a period of life when you're struggling to find time or motivation for it. And it's the 3-sentence rule, which goes, no matter how swamped for time or however little energy you have on a particular day, you could just about always add 3 more sentences to a work in progress. So try to do that. That's gotten me through many tough times.
I like
That's good. Yeah, I like it.
I've got a good rule of 3 to jump in on that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I've always thought to succeed as a writer, you need talent, hopefully, more important, luck and perseverance. And you really can't control two out of those. So perseverance is incredibly important.
Yes.
Every success
Yeah.
story I've ever heard has included that word perseverance.
It's just basically keep at it, no matter how many rejections or bad,
Uh-oh, Vera froze up.
No, yeah.
whatever happens, just don't
Yes.
give up. Yeah,
Yeah.
somebody said that if you can't give up writing, then you just should, because that's it.
Yeah, there was a book I read a long time ago. This was on acting. It applies to writing, and it was about what to expect when you enter the professional world. And the first 2 chapters were so depressing about the numbers and the odds and the work and everything you had to do. And as an aspiring actor about to move out here and reading this, then at the end of the 2nd chapter, the person who wrote this said, "Now, if I've convinced you to get out of the business, you should. If I can't convince you, then welcome aboard."
I like that.
I like that too.
Nice.
Right. First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming and joining us today. It was awesome seeing the returning faces and some new faces too. I appreciate that. Thanks to the people who asked some questions, some great questions. I think we had a great time. And for those of you who would like, our next panel is going to be at 1:15 Eastern, and I'm sorry, 2:15 Eastern. I can't tell time. 2:15 Eastern, and we're going to be talking about using Ream and Patreon for Vera's book specifically. But if anybody's interested in using that as a tool for your own uses, feel free to join us. We'll add you to the chat.
And I wanted to quickly say, go to the website and check out everybody's bios here, because
Absolutely.
you have the links, Jacqueline, Stephen, Mike, just go through there and see their bios, go through and click around and look at their books, because it's good stuff.
Add them to your reading lists.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Thanks everybody, and have a great
Thank
afternoon.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, everybody.